Twitter posted, get the bot in here, and get our Discord posted. So, hello everyone, this is Chris Ingerson, and it is January 24th. This is the January 24th TextQuest Devstream. So, today we are going to be doing some more UI work. Specifically, we're going to be finishing up some final touches on the new input menu and addressing a few bugs that I've noticed, not with the input menu, but with some other UI. And that should probably keep us going for most of the night, specifically because one of the adjustments we're going to make to the input menu is probably going to be overriding Unity's base slider component and basically getting it to behave a little bit more refined than the default one does. So that probably means we want to show up some coding, and we'll leave it at that, I guess, for today. It's going to be a mostly coding day, I get the feeling. Okay, so to give you a sense of where things currently are, let's go ahead and just jump in. I'm going to basically just jump in and continue, and I'll just show you what the current input menu is doing. It's pretty much the same. If you caught the last dev stream, we have added a bunch of movement to it, so no longer does your output just kind of like pop into existence. Instead, it scrolls in from the bottom of the screen. Give this a second. And basically everything just feels a lot more dynamic and juicy now, so it's going to be a little bit more interesting visually to look at. But there are a few other things that I want to do to fine-tune this. So you can see that our input menu does come in from off-screen, kind of scrolls in from the bottom, and if we keep toggling it back and forth, it will properly adjust, so it's no longer kind of doing that snap down and popping back up. So that's the base interactions. If we type something in, you'll see that it scrolls in from the bottom. If we do a couple of other things like self, examine self. I'm going to go ahead and also fill this up real quick, so I guess we'll say hit self. Oops, not kill self. Insult self. Okay, so if we were to scroll through, you can see that it still does scroll if it goes past the top. And you can scroll all the way up to the very top, which gives us just this base gradient again. One of the things that I would like to do is I would like to add, once the scroll rect has basically filled up all the way, if you scroll up to the top, I would like a little scroll down icon to show up, just to let you know that you are looking at an input view that has content, but you just can't see it because it's scrolled off to the bottom of the screen. One of the other things that I would like to address is I want this output area to have inertia, so you can see that if I toss this, it'll kind of keep going for a little bit before it decelerates and then stops. And that's cool, and I like that because it just kind of feels a little bit more natural like that. You can kind of briefly scroll through without having to keep constantly scrolling yourself. You can just kind of pick it up and throw it. And this is a nice feature, but the problem is that if I do something like this, you can see that if I throw it down and I try to scroll up, it'll kind of fight against that scroll where it's trying to keep scrolling down. So what I would like to do is essentially, and if I throw that all the way to the bottom and then try to scroll up, we'll still have that inertia. So if I do like that and try to scroll, you'll see that it still has some velocity there. So one of the things that I would like to do is basically set it up so that if you throw this and it reaches the bottom like that, it will instantly decelerate. It'll just stop with the inertia, or stop with the inertia. That doesn't make sense. Basically, the velocity will be zeroed out. Because if you start scrolling, I feel like that should take priority over whatever inertia was already there. And if it reaches the end, then that means that it got all the way to the direction that you threw it, and therefore it doesn't make sense for it to continue to have velocity. So again, it should just stop. So those are the two things that I want to do with this scroll area in particular. But before we do that, like I said, the first thing we're going to do is just get it so that when it is scrolled all the way up and there are outputs, you'll see a little icon here that's kind of flashing, says maybe scroll down or something like that, just to give people a visual indicator that there is more content that they just can't see. So, and that's kind of the current state of things. If I go ahead and clear this, you can see that it scrolls all the way down, and then if we say test, examine self, and blah blah blah, So that's kind of the current state of the input menu. Some minor updates that we need to do there, and that's what we're going to focus on to start. So let's go ahead and turn on our UI. I'm going to grab our input view that's here. I'm going to turn this on. We're going to go to our output. We're going to go to the gradient here specifically, because this gradient is separate from the actual content. You'll notice that the content has a default size of 15, but the gradient is a size of 100, and it is parented, essentially anchored to be at the top of that gradient, or sorry, not at the top of that content, so that we have this nice little buffer area basically to make it a little bit easier for you to see the transition from basically everything in the environment to the actual output. So what I would like to do is on top of this, I'm going to go ahead and say create UI, text mesh pro text. So we're going to make a new text mesh pro label, which that's going to take a while because that's the first one I looked at while this is today. Well, that's much faster than I was expecting it to be. So we're going to go ahead and swap this out for our 8-bit font asset. We are going to, let's go ahead and rename this as whatever that was. I'm going to call this scroll down label, I guess. We're going to go ahead and have this be anchored all the way across. We will have this be centered. No, you know what? We'll have this be at the bottom. It will be left aligned. We'll give it some padding of 10. We'll just give it 10 across the board. I think that'll be good. Not that it really matters. And just to be absolutely sure, I will go ahead and turn off ray casting. Raycast target. We don't really need that for this. So all this is going to do is say scroll down. And it would be nice if I had some method of like doing an arrow or a sprite here. Unfortunately, my text does not have that, but I suppose I could look for something because I know that we can do an up arrow. Like, where is it? Here we go. We can do like an up caret, and that gets interpreted as an arrow that's pointing upwards. I could try to write a custom tag that will actually rotate that. Oof, that would be... Oh man, that would be interesting. Oh, oof. I don't know if I want to do that on the stream. That would probably take me more time than I am comfortable doing. Because I would be writing our own custom rich text tag, which would be cool, but improbable, I suppose. Let me think, actually. I could potentially write a script that would force this to behave the way I want, but that would also be a little awkward, I feel. So for now, we're not going to worry about having the arrow there. That's something I'm going to add a little bit later. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have this say scroll down with 3 dots. Ellipses is a pretty common way of showing this off. And what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of have this fade in and out, like that, basically. That's all we'll have it do. We will go ahead and let's see. So this is 36. I'm pretty sure that that's larger than our default outputs. So let's go to section prefabs, text section, our label 42. Okay, never mind. I guess for consistency, we should probably do something like 42 then. That's pretty good overall. I'm happy with that. So let's go ahead and we're going to open up our input. God, this inspector is getting way too long. So we're going to go up to here. We're going to scroll all the way up to here. And let's see here. So we're going to need... I'm going to add up here public text mesh pro. Oops. Wow, we're not using it here. Haha. So I'm going to say using TM Pro. We're going to do text mesh pro UGUI. We'll say scroll label. Okay. Now here is where things get a little awkward. I could start a coroutine to do the flashing, or I could put it in update, and that might actually end up being the better way to go, just because if I have to constantly start and stop update or start and stop coroutines, that will generate garbage. But update is something that will be called regardless, and we are already using update because we need it for our various commands to close the menu, basically, as well as a bunch of other things. But so that means that we can, in this is open. Let's see here. We're going to do a couple of things. We're going to come down to here, and we're going to say if scroll area dot normalized vertical position is equal to 1f. All right, and then we're going to say else if scroll label dot alpha is greater than 0f. Okay. So basically all we're going to do here is, I need to come all the way up to the top actually. We're going to need a couple of things. One, we're going to need a float here called protected float. What do I want to call this? Scroll flash. Delta. Gross. Gross. I can't really think of a better thing for that. I guess I could call it like cooldown. Sure, why not? Cooldown with 3 O's because that's how cool it is. Cooldown. Let's see. So we have our scroll cooldown. We're gonna come down to here, and basically what we're gonna do is we are going to. Do I want it to evaluate along that? Nah, it's fine. So we're gonna say if scroll flash cooldown is less than or equal to. No. We're just gonna say if it's less than 0f. We're gonna go ahead and say. Crap. That means I do have to have 2 of those. Gross. I hate doing that. So we're gonna do this. Move this up to here. We're gonna say protected bool scroll flash fade in. This is terrible naming. We actually want to call that fade out because otherwise it'll be a little awkward when we initialize it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and say if it's less than 0f, we will say scroll flash cooldown is equal to 0f, and then we're also going to say scroll flash fade out is equal to false. Else if scroll flash cooldown is greater than 1f, I'm going to say scroll flash cooldown is equal to 1f, and then we'll say scroll flash fade out is equal to true. Okay, and then after that we're just going to go ahead and say if scroll flash fade out scroll flash cooldown minus equals time dot delta time, and in addition to that we are going to want to say scroll, sorry, not that, we're going to say scroll label dot alpha is equal to scroll flash cooldown. Okay, which is probably actually something I can do at the very bottom here. Good, and that also needs to be addressed, so we're going to go up to here, and let's see, auto scroll duration. We're going to go ahead and say public float scroll label duration, flash duration, terribly long name, is equal to, we'll say 1f. Let's go ahead and tooltip that. Duration for time it takes for the scroll label to flash to become visible when flashing. suppose. Okay, we're going to come back here, and we're going to divide this time.delta time divided by scroll flash duration. Okay. And then we're going to say else pretty much this exact thing, except we're going to say plus equals instead of minus equals. And then we will say it's alpha is equal to scroll flash cooldown. That's all good. I guess what I could do here, I'm going to move this up to here. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to say pretty much the same thing for our else if down here. So if the scroll labeled alpha is greater than 0, we're just going to say scroll label dot alpha is equal to scroll flash cooldown. Really, I need to change that name. And we're just going to say scroll flash cooldown minus equals time dot delta time divided by oops, that's the wrong solid. It's divided by duration. Okay. And we're also going to cheat here, and we're just going to hard set this to be scroll flash fade out is equal to true. Okay. So I think what we can do there is we should be able to plug those variables in now, and it should just work, essentially. At least I believe it will anyway. And when have I ever been wrong? So eventually this will compile, and then we can save. Okay, let's go ahead and put that in there. We're all good here. I hate that that's what I called it, but whatever. Let's go ahead and collapse this. Apply. Turn this off. Hit save. Okay, so that should essentially get that to. Oh shoot! You know what? I totally forgot. Like this. I totally forgot to make this alpha completely transparent. There we are. Oh, and we also need to add a safety check here because we don't just care if the normalized position is equal to 1. We also want to say and output. What did I call it? Sections, I guess. And sections.count is greater than 0. We only need to show that, scroll down if you can actually scroll down. It doesn't make sense to show it otherwise. So. All right. That will probably need to change at some point to handle closing and opening. I'm guessing that it's not going to look right now. We'll probably have to add some quick functionality to the close function to get that to behave properly, but this should give us a sense of if it's going to at least look right. Assuming it ever compiles. Aha! All it took was me saying that it would never compile. All right. Okay. Let's click on this. Start. Continue. Give it its prerequisite, like 50 seconds for it to finish loading. I really need to look into what's causing that lag spike. Oh, actually, I probably bet it's the substances. Yeah. Okay. So let's see this. Nice. I like it. Looks pretty good. My assumption is that that was going to be a problem. Yeah, where the scroll down doesn't go away all the way. So probably what we'll do is we'll go ahead and stop playing that real quick. And so this all works. I'm going to go ahead and comment this just so that I'm not flash scroll down. Okay. We're going to go all the way up to here, and in addition to having our scroll flash duration, I am going to go ahead and create a tooltip public animation. Wow, terrible. Animation curve. We'll call this scroll flash curve is equal to animation curve dot ease in out 0f 0f 1f. Don't think I'm gonna have to change that. So this is gonna be curve to evaluate scroll label alpha when flashing, which actually does make me remember. I'm going to not make me remember. I'm going to change this to just scroll flash duration instead of scroll label flash duration. I will put these next to the other animation curves. Okay, I think we're good there. Let's go ahead and tooltip this just so I don't forget. Label to show when the output area has scrolled to the top. Scrolled completely to the top, which probably should have a little bit of fuzziness to it, actually. Which I think is, so instead of saying if it's directly equal to 1f, we could probably do something like float.epsilon, which I think would be this greater than or equal to this minus float.epsilon up. Epsilon. So this is just a very tiny number. If you were watching stream we had, I believe it was last week, this is a number that you kind of use to basically cover floating point errors, because floating point or float values will be considered the same, even if they're not perfectly identical, but they're very, very close. And this epsilon value is basically a way to make sure that you can catch that. Because if it's scrolled within point, because like normalized value of 1 means that it's scrolled all the way to the top, but if it's at like 0.99, that's probably good enough. I probably actually should go ahead and change that to just say that if it's greater than or equal to like 0.99, but this is probably okay. So we'll, it might just be easier to do that. Well, no, we'll leave it like that. Okay, so that should handle that, and we are also going to go ahead and say, instead of alpha being equal to scroll flash cooldown, it's going to be equal to scroll flash curve dot evaluate based on scroll flash cooldown, which I am going to rename scroll delta. Scroll flash delta, I suppose. Delta. Okay. And again, same thing. All this does is it changes our somewhat stilted flashing animation that you saw to be a little bit more organic, because it's not going to it's going to have ease in and out, so it's not going to go straight from 0 to 1 linearly. It's going to instead kind of like slowly ramp up and then slow down when it gets closer to 1, just to make it look a little bit more natural. Okay, so that's all that, but what we need to do as well is when we call close, which I think is actually going to be, let's see here. Hold everything. Should be up here. No, I guess it's actually going to be closer to here. So I'm going to go to definition and then full close, go to definition. When we call that, we're also going to go ahead and say scroll label dot alpha is equal to 0f, and we're also going to go ahead and say scroll flash delta is equal to 0f, and we're also going to go ahead and say scroll flash fade out is equal to false. Very, very simple for us to do. Okay, so that should take care of our issue regarding not knowing if there's content below it. So now if you scroll all the way up and all of your output content is off screen, you will have a little flashing indicator to let you know that there is content off screen, and you can scroll down to see it. So the next thing we're going to do after we test this to make sure that it works the way I'm expecting it to is going to basically just be reworking the slider so that it resets its inertia a little bit more cleanly. And I'm pretty sure, I'm just going to double check. I am pretty sure that there is. Oh man, that sucks. I just realized I'm going to have to like do it on the scroll rect, not on a scroll bar. Oh, that's the wrong one. Hold on. Output new. Here we are. So we have our inertia. I'm pretty sure that there's no built-in way for us to handle this. Yeah. So, yeah, there's nothing built into that to basically let it auto stop itself, which is a little weird and annoying, but what can you expect from built-in components, I suppose? Only the barest of functionality. All right, so let's go ahead and let's go. Start. Continue. Give that a chance. And then we should be good. At least I'm hoping so. I'll look like a fool otherwise. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and say test self. 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 And then punch self. Okay. Scroll down. So you can see that we have a little bit of a nicer kind of like fade in, fade out. Yeah. It's a subtle effect, but it does look pretty good. Let's go ahead and scroll down. Okay, there's going to be... Okay, so that goes away too. Test. Let's go ahead and just bump that up. Ooh, that was interesting. Huh. It's a little choppy if you rapidly type stuff in, but that's not too bad, I guess. So we're going to go ahead and do this. We do get our scroll down. It does look pretty nice. Okay. So I feel like I probably should also be seeing it if it's like here-ish. So I'm gonna kind of like softball that then. We're gonna go all the way back down here. So instead of doing this, I guess I could also move this to the front. There's no point in even checking what the position of that is if those are not greater than 0. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do this 0.99f. See if that gives us a good enough buffer area. The main reason I didn't really want to do a hard set 0.99 was because in theory, if you had a massive amount of outputs and you scrolled up, then 0.99 might be well before you got to the top, but that is a pretty minimal risk, I feel. So it's not particularly worth entertaining, I don't think. Or perhaps a better way of saying that would be it's not particularly a thing worth worrying about. I I'm going to say that 0.99 is probably good enough. We'll go ahead and test that, obviously, but I'm pretty confident that will be good enough. So then we can move on to the slide scroll area stuff. All right, we're gonna let that go. I'm just gonna go ahead and hit continue, and I'm gonna take a drink while that's loading in. Okay. Huh. That's why it looks weird, because they kind of like pop up to the top before they scroll in. Ooh, that's not great. Okay, so that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and put in a bunch of test cases. Yeah, see, that's what I'm concerned about. So that amount would have to be kind of dynamically determined, which would it though? Actually, there might be a way to do that. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Let's go ahead and go to UI. Scroll down a little bit more. We're going to go to view container, input, root. I'm going to go to output and let's see if you're Dix Unity. Can I get the position for this? Page slider, slider. Because my curiosity, or I might be able to basically just do a hard number on this and say that if its scroll position is equal to basically like a fixed number, because we only really want to show it if it's scrolled all the way to the top or within like 15 pixels of the bottom, I think, because by that point we would be able to see like that at least. So start content start position. Okay, so that number changes too much. Content bounds, view bounds, velocity, preposition. Those are not useful. Okay, so none of those are useful information. Excuse me. So that means that I have to do something like this. Scroll area dot vertical. Really? So we only have normalized positions to work with, and that's not good enough. So, uh, wow, no, that would be terrible. Um, the only thing I can think of is to constantly get the size of the rect and basically say if the normalized position, like basically calculate my own normalized value based off of the size of the rect and the offset that I want. Gross. I don't want to do that. That's disgusting, and I think it's also a bit expensive actually to get all of the pixel rect coordinates for a rect transform. So that's not great. Um, yeah, that's not great. So let me think. Let me think. This might be an issue where it will be solved by us addressing the scrolling issue or the velocity issue because I'll be able to basically hook into it. So let's go ahead, and I already have the Unity Technologies stuff pulled up. Let me go ahead and pull that over. So the main thing that we're going to be looking at is, let's see, scroll rect. So we're essentially going to want to build on top of this, which I really hope does not necessitate just redoing this entire class, because it's entirely possible that it will, and it will drive me insane if it does. Because Unity loves marking everything as private. Okay, it's okay. I'm calm. Back to normal. Not too concerned. So let's go ahead and see what we can do here. There are a couple of things that I need to account for to start. I guess I can go ahead and start a script at least. I'm going to put it in sleepyowl.common because I feel like it's something I could use in other areas and other games. So we're going to go ahead and say components, mask, text, toggles. Oh man, the reverse mask. If only it actually worked. That's an old one that I never got around to finishing. We're going to go ahead and call this scroll area. So scroll rect, I guess, is what it should be. Okay. Create folder. I'm going to call this inertia scroll rect. Enhanced scroll rect. That's boring. I don't want to call it like velocity resetting scroll rect. I guess I could just call it SOS scroll rect. Growth. Growth. Yeah. So SOS scroll rect. Okay. Oh, I probably should just go ahead and. Sure. SOS scroll rect. Terrible name. Create C# script. SOS. Oops, not that. Scroll rect. Almost hit enter there too. Okay. So scroll rect. Let's go ahead and open that up. And while that's happening, we're going to get back to Unity. And let's see here. So we have our view rect, which at least that's protected, which is nice. We're going to go ahead and say view bounds, velocity. Velocity is going to be the thing that I need to keep track of. And it does look like we can set that publicly at least. I had considered, by the way, making, instead of having a whole new like scroll area script, I would just create like a kind of like staple component or something that would just kind of be like bolted onto it that would detect when it's scrolling and then automatically, adjust based on that. But I'm not sure that I want to handle it like that. It would, I mean, it's fine if I do it that way, and we might end up doing that if it's a little more simple. But ideally, we would just be able to override some key things in here and just get it working. But we'll see. Because it's entirely possible, again, that a lot of this stuff is protected, so I can't actually access it from a separate script. The other thing that we need to look for while we're in here is, let's see, I need my velocity, which is here. We passed it, right? Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. We're going to look for that. It is used in 17 spots. If I change this to just lowercase velocity, please tell me that's okay. Yep. Okay, so I can do M velocity. That's what it's using, which is actually potentially problematic, but let's see. Okay, so M velocity. I'm going to come down to here on disable. We don't care about that. On scroll, stop movement. Oh, that's nice. There is a stop movement thing. Okay. So that's useful to know. That's very useful. We're going to go ahead and so late update. Speed, velocity axis. kind of just trying to figure out where velocity gets set here now. Excuse me. Okay. Huh, interesting. Let's go ahead and that's not great. So it looks like it gets set basically in this area, but I don't know where that's coming from. Because it would be nice if there were some very obvious um, call outs to the mouse scroll wheel. That is very hard to say for some reason. Um, but I'm not actually seeing anything like that, which probably means that I don't want to do that. Come on. It probably means that it kind of auto picks up the scroll wheel from somewhere else. I'm willing to bet that it's one of its base components. Maybe not. It is a UI behavior, which itself doesn't have any relevant information about that, actually. So, cool. Scroll handler. That is probably useful. I'm hoping they structure it in a sensible way, but they probably do not. I actually don't also know what this requires. So I'm going to go ahead and say using Unity engine.events. We're going to go ahead and say sorry, not that, it's systems. Yep, okay, scroll handler on scroll. That's what I'm looking for. On scroll. Here we are. This is probably what we want. Scroll delta. Okay. Let's see, vector 2 position. Oh, that's right, because scrolling doesn't actually add velocity. That's only handled on the drag. Okay. Right. That makes sense. That that also explains why they don't have inertia on any scroll interactions, because they probably were too lazy to calculate that. Okay. So I think we want on drag, I believe. I don't think we're gonna need on drag end, but I guess it's right here. Yeah, it doesn't look like we get anything from there. Let's see. We're not getting anything on velocity. Oh, come on. Why did you do that to me? Let's see. Dirty, update bounds. Is this wrapped? Of course it is, because you're frustrating. Just bounds, update bounds, update scroll bar, set horizontal, rubber delta, transform dimensions, set normalized positions, horizontal, update scroll bars. Okay, here we are. So on drag, we get update bounds, local cursor, cursor return is active, position, pointer data, offset. Really? Well, I'm a little baffled. I'd like to know what exactly is setting it. Because all I can see here is some awkward amount of it. Smooth, damp, anchored position, axis. Of course, it's handled by dampening. Ugh. Okay. So it's probably this right here. Basically using So this is elastic, which we're not using, which means that it's not this. We do have inertia, so it's probably here. Um, hmm. Except it's already expecting a value there. What the frig? Here we are. Yes, here we are. Jeez, okay. So it was after all of the evaluations. Strange. Um, M dragging and M inertia. Yep. New velocity, anchor position minus previous position divided by delta time. That makes sense. Okay. Then, yeah, I don't think that I need to actually overwrite this necessarily. I mean, I could. Um, I suppose all I would need to do is in late update, or I would just have to override late update, I think. Um, and then I would just need to say uh, if my position is how do I phrase this? If my normalized vertical position is either 0 or 1, that means it's at the end, and therefore we shouldn't have any velocity, so I could clamp it. So I would just need to override late update to do that, and I would also need to override on scroll, I believe, which I'm assuming is crap. It was somewhere around here, which is virtual. Good. Okay. So yeah, all I need to do then is go up to here. I'm going to say using Unity engine.ui. We're going to make this derived from scroll rect. Okay, so we're going to override late update, and before that, we're going to override on scroll. Okay, and with that, we're going to call base.update. We're going to call base.scroll, and all we're going to do there is just say, what was it, stop movement? Like, that's all I need to do there, and then we're just going to say if normalized. I guess we would just do this. Normalized position dot x is less than or equal to 0f, or normalized position dot x is greater than or equal to 1f. And then we're going to go ahead and say, or normalized position dot y is less than or equal to 0f, or normalized position dot. Oh, you know what? Actually, no. Hold on. We do want these to be separate. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of do this. So we're just going to go ahead and say, actually, when I retrieve normalized, what? Okay. Here we are. Update bounds. So we do have to call update bounds on everything. And that's really gross. Okay. So it doesn't really matter then. Cool. So we're just going to change this from normalized position to normalized. So this is going to be horizontal normalized position. We don't need the dot x. We don't need the dot x. Okay. All we're going to do there is we're just going to say not vertical. Velocity dot x, which this is a getter, so I have to say velocity is equal to new vector 2 0f velocity dot y. That's essentially all I got to do there. And then we're going to say else if. I guess I don't have to do an else if. I could probably have that actually be the same thing. So we're just going to go ahead and copy this. Okay. We're going to go ahead and say if vertical normalized position, blah, 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 same thing, but in reverse, basically, dot x 0f. Okay, pretty straightforward. And I believe if we set this, it's probably going to be a nightmare, but... Oh, cool. Nope. Just a regular old Vector 2 wrapper. That's nice. Okay. So that should essentially just clamp down on inertia if we ever scroll or if we hit any of our sides, essentially. So, cool. And that's probably fine. So let's go ahead and let that compile. I will have to basically redo this. Um, but I don't think that will be too bad. So probably what I'll do is I'll just duplicate this output new, and then I'll reference the duplicate. All right. Well, while that's happening, I'm going to get another drink. And one day it will compile. I promise. It can't stay. Now, there we go. All right. So this is our reference one. We're going to go ahead and remove this scroll rect. We are going to add the SOS scroll rect. Ooh, if it lets me do so. Okay. So now I need content to be my viewport. So basically all of that is what's sensible. So viewport is this and content is this. We don't have horizontal. We want this to be clamped. We do want inertia with 0.135. Scroll sensitivity of 25, I believe. Yeah, 25. Okay, so now these should basically be the same, just with some minor adjustments. So that needs to be checked off. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and drag this in here. I'm going to just turn this one completely off. Keep it as a reference, though, because it could be useful. We'll go ahead and just hit apply. That should keep everything going. So let's go ahead and say that. Okay. So let's take a look at this in game. We should see it move around, and it should properly handle our scrolling velocity now. Well, not so much handle scrolling velocity so much as cancel out velocity when you start to scroll. Okay. Go ahead and maximize on play while we're at it. Start. Continue. All right. Okay. All right. Sorry, I was trying to think through what I needed to do. Test. Nice. Throw it down. Scroll up. Cool. So now we don't get extra velocity. Like it doesn't keep staying there. It'll go away on its own once it scrolls all the way to the top. Same thing. Nice. Okay. And then we can go ahead. Yep. So you can see that when I toss it, as soon as I start scrolling, it just zeroes out the velocity. And we don't get that fight. Cool. Well, there we go. So that is pretty much the two major things that I wanted to do for our input area now. So that's that taken care of, which is nice. Oh, I guess the other thing that I was going to try and do was to calculate my normalized position that I would need, wasn't it? But that is clearly something that is horrific. So I'm not really sure what to do about that. I guess for now it would just be this. Not ideal, but it'll work. Okay, so with that, our input menu overall, I think, is pretty much done. Everything seems to basically behave the way I would expect. There is a little bit of oddity that I'm going to look into after the stream tonight with regards to how rapidly filling in output seems to cause it to kind of like bump up and then immediately move down, which is a bit strange to me. I'm not really sure what's going on there. Um, I was wondering if it was maybe the scroll area trying to compensate for the new size, but that doesn't seem like that would be the case, honestly. Um, so let's go ahead and I'm going to take a look at another thing that I want to fix, which is for some reason it seems like our loading screens are kaput right now. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. Instead of hitting continue, I'm just going to start a new game and show you that there is no loading screen that seems to show up. So we're going to go ahead and say start. We're going to load. Oh, sorry, not load. New game. There we go. And we're just going to say Chris. Yes. Normal. Right. Green. Yes. And yes. Okay. So you can see that we're not. There's no loading going on right now. Well, so I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. There is loading going on, but you're not seeing anything in the center here. Like there's no text being shown, which is very odd because there should be a loading screen. And you can kind of see that there is, we do have a loading bar, and it looks like we just didn't populate our minigame. That's interesting. I wonder why. Let's go back here to loading animations. Oh. Huh. Where did my default go? That would be why. Did it get deleted somehow? Well, this is cool. Uh-huh. That, what? Oh. Ho ho. Oh ho ho. Really? This is curious. The script name has to be different. What's going on here? Unity Collaborate. Oh, you son of... It's Unity Collaborate. It did that to me. Cool. Thanks, Unity. So it reverted back to its original name. Cool. Yeah, that's cool. So we'll let that compile again real quick. So if your script name does not match the name of the file for the script, then Unity will throw an error. Well, actually, it won't throw an error. It just won't compile properly, which is why we were getting that nothing selected. So now, once this compiles, this should just pop in and be fine. So that's not cool. That's very distressing because that means that Unity Collaborate adjusted that file without me noticing it. Cool. Cool. Yeah, that's a little distressing. So now if we pull that back in, are you kidding me still? What is happening? Oh, because it's not default loading minigame, it's default loading animation. Animation. Okay. Woof, though. That is really frustrating. And that, boys and girls, is why you don't use Unity Collaborate. And that is why I regret using that ever since I started and using it. I really should have just paid for GitHub. Especially because now I wouldn't have to pay for GitHub. Sucks. Well. It is what it is, I suppose. Alright, so let's see if that fixed it. There we go. Yeah, that's much better. So we're going to go ahead and let's assign that. Let's hit save here. Let's try this again. So that is legitimately distressing, though, because it does mean that I have to... Oh, man. You know what I bet that was? I reverted some changes. Like I tried to revert some changes I had a while back, but it failed to revert the individual changes, and it was only a couple, so I just undid everything. And I wonder if when I did that, it reverted that script. Fortunately, it seems like it was probably just the name and not the content. but that's still not great. Yeah, there we go. Everything seems to work there. So cool. Yeah. Awesome. So, all right. Well, um, I think we might end up calling it a little early tonight, just because those were kind of the big things that I wanted to get done on today's stream. And, aha, yeah, that's super nice. Being able to just kind of like scroll and not worry about the inertia. So some quick announcements before the stream ends, I suppose. This Saturday, I am going to be, well, this weekend, I'm going to be participating in the Global Game Jam. So I will not be doing my stream because I will be jamming on a game of some kind. Don't know what it is because I don't know the theme yet. Um, so I won't be doing my stream on Saturday, but I should be back on Tuesday and Thursday of next week. Should be fine. Next Saturday or next weekend as well, I will not be doing the Devstream because I have a friend coming into town. Basically, for the next 2 weekends, not going to be doing the Devstream. Next week should be on schedule, should be fine. And I think that's the major announcements I have for the next week or so. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good place to stop for the night. So we got just a quick overview of what we did. We have our nice little scroll down flashing going on here. We do have inertia canceling out if you scroll the way in one direction or if you start scrolling as it's scrolling, just as a nice little quality of life feature. We fixed the weird UI or weird loading screen issue because Unity just decided to mess with me, I guess. Um, but yeah, so we have a little bit of nicer easing for some of our positioning that happens in our input menu now. Huh. I almost thought for a second that like if I pulled this up all the way that the audio faded out. And that would actually be kind of a cool effect, but I'm not gonna worry about that too much. That's a nice little like weird feature. That would be cool. But okay, so yeah, I think that's a pretty good place to stop for the night. So as always, I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all next time.